A routine traffic stop takes a chilling turn when a police officer notices something on the driver's arm, something that sends a cold shiver down his spine. What he once believed to be true is suddenly thrown into doubt. What will he do next? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The red and blue lights flashed against the pitch-dark highway, casting eerie, distorted reflections on the glossy surface of the black SUV that had just come to a stop. The night was still, almost unnaturally so, with only the distant hum of crickets and the occasional rush of a passing car breaking the silence. Officer Adam Whitman exhaled slowly, adjusting his radio before stepping out of his cruiser, the familiar weight of duty settling on his shoulders. His boots crunched against the loose gravel that lined the shoulder of the road. Another late-night stop. Another driver who had pushed the speed limit just a little too far. Routine, right? As he approached the vehicle, his posture remained steady, professional, one hand resting near his holster. Not out of fear, just habit. His department drilled it into them. Always be prepared. Even for the most routine stops. Through the heavily tinted window, the silhouette of the driver was barely visible. Adam rapped his knuckles against the glass, his jaw tightening in the brief pause before the window slowly rolled down. Inside, a black woman sat behind the wheel, her face partially illuminated by the harsh, artificial glow of his cruiser's headlights. She looked calm, but Adam had been an officer long enough to recognize what was beneath the surface. There was a stiffness in her posture, a tension in her hands as they gripped the steering wheel just a little too tightly. "License and registration, please," he said, keeping his voice neutral, steady. The woman nodded, moving too slowly. Every movement was measured, as if she was calculating each action before she made it. Adam knew that look. He had seen it before. People who were afraid of the police always moved like that. And he had been on enough stops to recognize the silent caution, the type that came from experience. She reached into the glove compartment, retrieved the documents, and handed them over. Naomi Carter. He read the name off the license. Early 30s. Clean record. Local address. So, why did she look like she was bracing for something? "Do you know how fast you were going, Miss Carter?" he asked, glancing at her before shifting his eyes to his notepad. She hesitated. Just for a second. "A little over, I think." 72 in a 65, Adam confirmed, tapping his pen against the notepad. He studied her face as he asked, "Where are you headed?" Naomi's tongue darted out to wet her lips. It was such a small movement, but Adam caught it. Just home. There it was. That slight hesitation. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't quite the truth either. Before he could push further, something caught his eye. A tattoo. A dark, circular mark peeked out from beneath the sleeve of her jacket. It wasn't large. It wasn't flashy or decorative. It was simple, precise, and terrifyingly familiar. Adam's breath hitched. His grip on her license tightened. He had seen that symbol before. Years ago. Before anyone could ask questions. Before officers started disappearing. That same symbol had been on their reports. On their personal effects. Hell, even scrawled on the walls of abandoned precinct locker rooms. Back then, the department had dismissed it. An old gang insignia, they said. But Adam remembered. He remembered how quickly any mention of it had been buried. And now here it was. On her. Naomi noticed his reaction. Her fingers flexed against the steering wheel. "Something wrong, officer?" Adam didn't answer immediately. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. "That tattoo," he said finally, forcing his tone to remain even. "Where'd you get it?" A silence stretched between them, thick, heavy. Then, for the first time, Naomi's expression shifted. Her face didn't just tense, it hardened. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Adam's fingers brushed over the radio clipped to his vest. "Try me." Naomi's gaze flicked toward his hand. And just like that, she made her decision. The SUV roared to life. Her foot slammed down on the gas. The tires screeched against the asphalt, kicking up dust as the vehicle lunged forward like a predator freed from its cage. "Damn it." Adam bolted back toward his cruiser, snatching up his radio. "Dispatch. I got a runner." Black SUV, heading westbound on Route 17. He barely finished the sentence before he threw his vehicle into gear, lights flashing as he took off after her. Naomi was fast. Faster than she should have been for someone who had been so cautious just moments ago. She weaved through the nearly empty highway with the precision of someone who knew exactly how to shake a tail. But Adam wasn't new to this. He stayed on her. "Pull over, Naomi," he shouted into the radio, though he doubted she could hear him over the blaring sirens. No response. Instead, she veered sharply, cutting across 2 lanes and flying down an exit ramp at a speed that made Adam's jaw clench. She was leading him off the main road. His grip on the wheel tightened. This wasn't just panic. This wasn't just someone freaking out over a speeding ticket. This was something else. Something bigger. And Adam had no idea what he was chasing anymore. But he knew one thing for sure. That tattoo, the one they had all been told to forget, wasn't just a coincidence. And Naomi Carter wasn't running without a reason. The only question was, did Adam really want to find out what that reason was? The SUV's taillights flickered in the darkness, barely visible as Naomi weaved through the winding back roads. Adam clenched his jaw. One hand gripped the wheel. The other hovered near his radio. The highway was already gone, swallowed by dense trees and uneven pavement. She wasn't just running. She was leading him somewhere. This wasn't reckless desperation. This was deliberate. Controlled. She knew exactly where she was going. "Dispatch, this is Whitman." Adam barked into his radio, his eyes never leaving the road. "Suspect is still fleeing. Heading west, past the county line. Approaching the old maintenance roads. Requesting backup." The radio crackled. Static filled the silence before a voice cut through. "Copy that, Whitman. Nearest unit is 15 minutes out." 15 minutes. A lifetime in a high-speed chase. Adam's gut twisted. Something about this felt wrong. And that tattoo? It wouldn't leave his mind. Because buried deep, *** beneath years of training, orders, and protocol, *** was a memory. A memory of something that happened years ago. A squad that vanished. No bodies. No evidence. And now, it was happening again. Himself standing by the large windows of his study, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out into the dimly lit garden. The weight of his decision pressed against his chest, heavier than he expected. He had built his life around control, around ensuring that everything within his world functioned like a flawless machine. But this was different. Leonardo had made a choice, one that Julian hadn't influenced, hadn't planned for. And for the first time in a long time, his son had looked truly alive. That fire in his eyes, the confidence in his stance, it was something Julian had nearly forgotten existed within him. A quiet knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. He turned, expecting one of the staff, but instead, Isabella stood there. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes held that same steady defiance he had come to recognize. "Senor Lombardi," she greeted, stepping inside only when he gave a slight nod. Julian took a slow sip of his drink before speaking. "You've managed to do something I couldn't." His voice was calm, but there was something unreadable beneath it. Isabella tilted her head slightly. "And what's that?" He turned back to the window, watching the breeze stir the leaves. "You made him feel again." A beat of silence passed before Isabella spoke, her tone softer than usual. "He just needed someone to see him." Julian exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "I should have been that person." Isabella didn't argue, didn't offer empty reassurances. She simply said, "You still can be." Julian turned to her then, studying her as if seeing her for the first time. She wasn't just some house cook. She wasn't just a woman with a past. She was someone who had lost everything and somehow still found a way to give. He nodded once slowly. "If he's going to do this, he'll need the best." Isabella crossed her arms. "He already has the passion. Now, he just needs the right training." A smirk tugged at the corner of Julian's lips. "Then you'd better not fail him." Isabella met his gaze, unwavering. "I won't." At that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a silent understanding, a shift in the carefully drawn lines that had separated their worlds. For the first time in years, Julian Lombardi was stepping into unfamiliar territory. But this time, he wasn't walking alone. Distractions. Now was the time to watch his son step into his own. The announcer's voice echoed through the Grand Theater. Next competitor, Leonardo Lombardi. Leonardo took one last breath, rolled his shoulders back, and walked onto the stage. The lights bathed him in a golden glow, illuminating the quiet determination in his eyes. Julian's fingers curled into fists at his sides. The moment had arrived. The music started, a soft melody that built into something powerful. And then Leonardo moved. Every step, every turn, every extension of his arms spoke of weeks of relentless training. But more than that, there was something raw, something real in his movements. It wasn't just technique, it was emotion. Isabella had given him the discipline, but the passion? That was his own. From the corner of his eye, Julian saw Santiago Beltran standing backstage, arms crossed, watching Leonardo with narrowed eyes. Good. Let him see. Let him worry. As the final note rang out, Leonardo landed his last step flawlessly, holding his pose for a beat before finally exhaling. The audience was silent for a split second. Then the applause erupted, loud and unrestrained. Julian felt something in his chest tighten. Pride. Leonardo walked off the stage, his breath ragged, sweat glistening on his forehead. Isabella was the first to greet him, a rare smile playing at her lips. You did it. Leonardo grinned, his eyes still shining with adrenaline. Yeah, I did. Julian stepped forward, his gaze locked onto his son's. He didn't speak for a long moment, but when he finally did, his voice was steady. No matter the results, you already won. Leonardo's smile faltered just slightly, as if hearing those words from his father meant more than the applause, more than the competition itself. As the results were announced, Julian didn't even care about the ranking. All he knew was that his son had walked onto that stage one person and stepped off it as someone entirely new. And for the first time in years, Julian Lombardi wasn't just a man who controlled everything in his life. He was a father who had learned to let go. Reflection. The announcer's voice echoed through the Grand Theater. Next, we welcome Leonardo Lombardi to the stage. Leonardo swallowed hard. His pulse pounded in his ears as he turned, his eyes searching for something, reassurance, approval, maybe even permission. Julian met his gaze, his expression unreadable at first. Then, with a single firm nod, he said, Go. Leonardo stepped forward, crossing the threshold from uncertainty to something greater. The stage lights were blinding, the weight of the silent audience pressing down on him. For a split second, doubt crept in. What if I fail? What if I forget the steps? What if Santiago was right? Then he saw them. In the front row, his father sat watching, not with judgment, not with expectation, but with something steady, something real. Next to him, Isabella gave the smallest nod. And just like that, the fear melted away. The music began, and Leonardo let go. His body moved before his mind could second-guess itself. The first step was sharp, the second even smoother. He surrendered to the rhythm, letting it take him, guide him. Every movement flowed into the next, effortless yet intentional. For the first time, he wasn't here to win. He was here to dance. The final sequence approached, the spin and leap he had struggled with for weeks. He braced himself, pushed off the floor, and for a fleeting moment, time seemed to slow. Then he landed, light on his feet, steady. The music stopped, a heartbeat of silence. Then the theater erupted. The applause crashed over him, thunderous and unrestrained. Leonardo stood there, chest rising and falling, sweat dampening his skin. He scanned the crowd, searching. His father was on his feet, clapping. Isabella, too, her eyes shining with pride. And for the first time in his life, Leonardo felt seen. The results came swiftly. And the winner of this year's competition is Santiago Beltran. Cheers filled the air as Santiago strode forward, his confident smirk unwavering as he accepted his trophy. Leonardo swallowed hard, keeping his expression neutral. He had lost. But before the disappointment could take hold, the announcer continued. We would also like to present a special award for artistic expression, one that recognizes not just technical skill, but passion, connection, and heart. This award goes to Leonardo Lombardi. Another wave of applause. Leonardo blinked, stunned, as his name echoed through the theater. He stepped forward, and the medal was placed around his neck. It wasn't first place, but as he turned toward the crowd, his father's expression told him everything he needed to know. Later, in the dressing room, as he removed his dance shoes, Santiago approached, twirling his trophy between his fingers. Not bad, he said, a smirk playing at his lips. You might actually be decent next year. Leonardo chuckled, meeting his gaze. Next year? I'm winning. Santiago arched a brow. We'll see about that. Outside the theater, Julian and Isabella waited. When Leonardo finally emerged, Julian placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder. How do you feel? He asked. Leonardo thought for a moment before answering. Proud. Julian nodded. Good. As they walked toward the car, Leonardo glanced down at the medal in his hands. It wasn't about winning or losing, it never had been. It was about proving to himself that he belonged on that stage, that he was capable, and next time he would be even better. Julian watched his son, seeing something new in him, something stronger. And for the first time in a long time, he felt it too. Not just pride, but something deeper. He had spent so many years focused on control, on perfection, that he had forgotten what truly mattered. Not the outcome, but the journey. Leonardo looked up at him, eyes shining with newfound determination. Can I keep training? Julian exhaled. Then, for the first time in years, he smiled. A real, genuine smile. Of course. We're just getting started. Julian never thought a single moment could change everything. But now? Nothing would ever be the same. What would you have done in his place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more.